Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 258.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because we're going to talk about one of the things that I think is most incredible about real estate investing. See, when it comes to many forms of business, I mean, say you wanted to be an inventor, or maybe you had the idea, maybe you think you're, the next social entrepreneur. You've got the idea for the next Facebook, the next social media thing, or maybe you have something so revolutionary that so many billions of people could use it and benefit from it. Well, that's great. I just know this. I wasn't gifted with any of those types of talents. And one of the great things about real estate is that it's accessible to everyone. And I mean everyone. And all you have to do is begin to recognize opportunity. And oftentimes opportunity can be right in front of your face. And until you're trained to recognize it, you just might not know that it was there. Today's guest, in my opinion, is definitely an expert of recognizing opportunity being right in front of his face. And more importantly, he's gone on to help hundreds, dare I say thousands, dare I say tens of thousands. In fact, he's impacted millions because he's been on shows like Good Morning America, CNBC's Power Lunch, as well as the Cash Flow Show. And now he's here with you and I to share his experience at how you can go from mailman to millionaire mailman using real estate and finding leads in significantly sneaky, awesome ways that you and I could use today, which I believe you're going to learn a lot from. So hopefully you're ready to take some notes, and let's listen to Tom Nardon. Tom, you there?
I'm here, Jay.
How are you today, sir?
I'm doing awesome, and thanks for having me on your show today.
I'm glad that you are here. You actually live in one of those few places where the weather can compete with Southern California out there in Florida. So I'm guessing you're enjoying winter at a nice 70 degrees?
Closer to 80 today around Fort Lauderdale. But yes, it's nice and tropical here today.
Don't you just love it? Okay, see, we just offended like half the audience right there. They're like, it's winter and they're 80 degrees in shorts. Yeah, that's just pretty much where it is. But I'm going to assume that you get to live where you love and invest where the numbers make sense.
Exactly.
So for those that don't know you, we're going to get into your story in a unique way. There's a question I like to ask nearly everybody that comes on this show. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs, Tom, a lot like yesterday's superheroes. So, Superman, Batman, Robin, Hulk, whatever. I look at them because I think superheroes and entrepreneurs have a ton in common. For example, occasionally we get dressed up and use our superpowers to assist other people and solve their problems for them. Occasionally, we actually, maybe we get, we put on some tights or we think we can solve the world's problems and we do our best to tackle that. We actually take on the responsibilities of other people's issues. And obviously we do so for a profit. Now, a lot like superheroes, before there was Superman, there was Clark Kent. Before there was Spider-Man, there was Peter Parker. There's always an origin story. Very few of them are just born, hey, I'm a superhero. And they have this story of their transition from where they were to where they are. Something happens to them. So what we want to know is before being on CNBC, before Good Morning America, before helping other mailmen to find vacant houses, before even finding your first vacant house, who is Tom Nardon?
That's a great way to to stage a question. And I would say who I am is I'm just really a guy who started out just looking for a better life for myself and my wife. I started as a postal person and got a job as a mailman here in Fort Lauderdale. Originally grew up in the Northeast and moved to Fort Lauderdale when I was just 19 years old. But after I met my wife at the post office, she kind of had an ideal of a lifestyle for us as a couple that was much better than just simply a government paycheck, although that wasn't bad when, you're just getting started in a marriage. But nonetheless, what I soon realized once I got into real estate was that I had all these neighborhoods that I either walk around or drive around from day to day, and I just would see houses all day long. So I guess, fortunately for me, back in the 80s, there was a bunch of no money down gurus that would kind of blow through Florida and Orlando and all these seminar towns. And I was lucky that I hooked up with a couple of good mentors that were really good and they were honest, and they showed me what I had available every day on my job. And that was that I would be able to see these houses, and they taught me how to look for the opportunities, and I took it from there.
And I think that is the crux of what I wanted you to say, because you said, a number of things that I think are great. First of all, for most of us, I think it's usually the promptings from someone else, in this case, your wife. Hey, honey, it'd be really nice if we had these things. They always seem to have a better vision for our lives than we do, but, maybe that's just a wifely gift or something that they've got going on. But you said something that I thought was interesting. You said a good mentor and showed you what you had already in front of you. Can you expound on those two things for me?
Yeah, it was a couple of guys. Actually, one of my mentors was a guy named Jack Miller who died about 7 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. Jack's old school, guys. If you don't know, I mean, we're talking, think pre-internet, but good.
Very much so. Well, Jack was a guy who very much believed about, buying direct from sellers and doing your own door-to-door marketing. And it might be hard for a lot of real estate marketers to envision this today, but he used to just go into neighborhoods he liked and just bang on doors and say, hey, you want to sell your house? Well, how my situation was similar to his was back in the 80s. And remember, like you said, that's pre-internet. But
yes.
my concept still works today if you have connections with postal employees, is back in the 80s, we had a little bit of a real estate crisis, which was the savings and loan crisis. If you remember that back in the 80s, it was sort of like a miniature version of what we just went through here 5 years ago. So as a mail carrier, I'd be delivering mail door to door, and I'd see certified letters that I would get from mortgage companies. So I would see a certified letter, and my job as the mail carrier was to go up to the guy's door, knock on the door, and speak to the borrower right in the face and get him to sign for the letter. And many a times I'd have that letter, and it would have the mortgage company's name, and the owner of the home would look at it and he'd go, oh my gosh, I got to get rid of this house. Do you know anybody who wants to buy it? And I'd be standing there in my mail uniform, and I'd be like, yeah, me. Just let me go home and get in my civilian clothes,
right?
And I'll come back and let's talk about it. But when you think about that, when a bank sends out a certified letter to a borrower who is in default, it's before the lis pendens is filed. It's before a notice of default is filed. So it's like I had the unfair advantage over all the investors. As a mailman, I would know when a house had the actual foreclosure case filed against it. Why? Because I would see all these other investors, suddenly they pick up, their lis pendens list or wherever they get their data from, and suddenly they're sending, I buy houses cash. But I didn't have to compete with them because I knew the default was happening before it actually was taking place.
Now, just so that we can keep everybody on the same page, I'm very well familiar with what you're referring to when you say Liz pendants or notice of default. But for those who may not have heard either of those terms before, can you expound a little bit or just teach us a little bit what those mean? And then I'll expound on why that was so crucial and important.
Sure, sure. Well, those two phrases kind of come from the type of state that you live in. For the most part of it, there's two types of debt instruments out there, or two types of mortgages, if you want to call it that. There's deeds of trust, and then there's mortgages, and therefore there's trust deed states, and there's mortgage states. And usually one of the first things that gets filed as a notice against that property legally on the public records is a notice of default if you're in a trust deed state, or a Liz pendens if you live in a mortgage state. That's the first official notice that gets filed telling that property owner and anybody else who wants to look it up on public record that there's a legal action going on with that property.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Basically what you're saying, and this is one of the reasons I did like probates for a while, because I liked them, because I could have what I termed first mover's advantage, in that the only other person or entity at the moment you are delivering that letter that knows this is going on, for the most part, again, especially pre-internet, the only other person that knew was the lender.
Correct.
And so it was you, the lender, and now the homeowner. That's it.
Exactly.
Oh, dude, that's just so sweet. Now, you've got to tell us, can this, what you're talking about, still happen today?
Oh, absolutely. And what it boils down to was, eventually, like when I got started, I was 19 years old. And my entire career with the post office lasted till I was about 35 years old, which is when I decided to up and leave. And when I decided to up and leave, I had a simple goal over that 16 years to buy just 2 rental properties a year. In fact, Jay, I kind of tell people that I sort of got started backwards in this business. And I say backwards because most people typically start out by buying and selling to generate chunks of cash. Well, I already had a post office government paycheck that automatically got direct deposited into my account every 2 weeks on Friday. So I didn't really have to worry about how I was going to eat and pay my bills. So I started just focusing on long-term holds. So when I woke up one day at age 35, I had 36 or 37 houses that I was renting out. And at that point, I realized, I got decent cash flow just from the positive cash flow from the rents. So then when I left my post office job, I started getting into more of fix and flip activity now that I had my daytimes available to me.
Right. When I also I hope everybody picked up on this. You said something that I think not enough people understand. You just said your goal was 2 a year. It wasn't 200, not 2,000. You weren't trying to be a millionaire overnight. It was 2 a year, and you took a long-term approach. I got to know where that seed was planted, and because you had to make it okay. I mean, here at Cashflow Diary, it's one of the things that I'm consistently trying to say. Yes, I get that you can make 30, 50, 60, 70, 100,000 or more on a fix and flip. But at some point, you're going to need a consistent source of income. At some point, you're going to have to build and hold an asset. But no one likes that message, but you did. Tell me why.
Well, I was really looking to build a steady cash flow for myself, that I wasn't constantly running on this treadmill of having to fix stuff up and resell it. And that the fixing and the reselling stuff was really okay with me, because when I grew up in New Jersey, from up north where I'm from, my dad was actually a police officer, but he moonlighted as a builder, and he built houses on the side. So since I was a little kid,
okay, this is getting really strange right there. Okay, hold on.
I know it's weird, but like a lot of cops and firemen and mailmen, they usually moonlight doing something else. So
yeah, but I've never heard moonlighting as a builder. That one is new. So okay,
yeah,
I get it though.
But the point is that from when I was a little kid, he would take me on these construction jobs. So I got to see how houses get nailed together. And then when I saw the whole fix and flip thing, I was like, well, this is not that hard. I mean, it's like paint and carpeting and, whatever else you got to do to it. And at first I started banging the nails myself because, I didn't have the money and, to have a house painted. And if I had to, I was willing to sacrifice it. If I had to bring my uniform to the house and stay up all day rolling out the walls because I had a tenant starting the next morning, I made that sacrifice. But once I started getting enough cash flow that I could just, hire stuff like that done. Now I'm the guy who writes the checks and oversees the work being done.
Tom, you keep bringing up words that I think are going to make people just like go, oh God, I got to do that. But I think you're keeping it real at the same time. You said the word sacrifice. No one wants to hear that today. You're supposed to be telling us how we can do this in 15 seconds or less and end up with a banging portfolio and quit our job tomorrow. I'm assuming that's just not been your reality, but over time, you and your students have been able to accomplish this. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And in fact, in the big term picture of where the market is today and a great strategy now and how I've even shifted my strategy is I used to have a bunch of rental properties that were, $300,000 houses with $150,000 or $200,000 mortgages on them. And maybe that's not so strange in California where the prices are.
No, those are actually called condos, not houses.
That's a condo or a townhouse or something, I'm
sure. No.
It's
definitely not a townhouse. It is definitely a condo.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that, in fact, it's funny you mentioned I'm actually jumping on a plane tomorrow morning to L.A., so I'll be in L.A. tomorrow afternoon. But here in Florida, my whole focus has changed to, I just want to do enough buying and selling activity to get a little pile of like $20,000 or $30,000 together in chunks. And every time I do that with my buying and selling activity, I would rather go and buy a low-end piece of junk property, even if it's a mobile home with the land that I can buy for $20,000 or $30,000 and have it free and clear and never have a mortgage company involved in my life. That's where I am today, is I would rather own low-end properties with high cash flow. And I'll give you an example. I just got back yesterday from a house we just bought about 4 or 5 days ago up in a little hick town in North Florida, about 4 hours north of me, close to Daytona Beach. And I'm sure everyone's heard of Daytona Beach. We paid $12,000 for that 3-bedroom cinder block home. It's probably worth about 50 or 60 grand. I got my crew up there right now today, putting about another 5 into it to get it rentable. And I'll have a house that I could rent for about $950 a month when it's done for the rest of my life for like an $18,000 investment all in. Now, where are you going to get that?
Well, here's what I do know. I know that if you got to remind me to let everybody know how to get in contact with you, because I know they're going to want to track you down. Now that you've said those types of numbers, but here's the thing. The house in and of itself doesn't create the return. At least that's not been the case for me. I mean, yes, you can buy the house. The house is wonderful, but the management piece, the property itself, just owning the property isn't the end of the story in and of itself. But I think the thing that you have cornered and still have available, which I think is awesome, is that you have this ability to find properties that others probably don't know about or weren't looking, so therefore narrowing the buying pool. How would someone today be able to execute? Because, I can hear the excuse already. Yeah, that's great, Tom. I'm glad that happened for you in 1980. In fact, some of our listeners are going, I wasn't even born yet. Others are like, great, I missed that. I remember that, but I didn't do what Tom did. So it's too late for me. I think the answer is no, they can still get started, but what do they need to do? How do they make it happen?
Okay. Excellent question. And here's something that probably you, Jay, or maybe even a lot of your listeners have never heard from any of your guests before. If you start talking to your mail carrier and you're nice to them, okay?
Whoa. Hold on. Nice to the mailman. This is new teaching. Keep going. Go slow, though.
Nice to them. In fact, I want to tell your listeners, I want to ask your listeners, I can't see your hand if you raise it, but how many of you tipped your mailman at Christmas last year?
You won't need to see their hand because I don't think anybody did.
I mean, what I'm saying is be nice to your mailman. Okay, give him $20 at Christmas time in a little card and put your I Buy Houses cash card in there and say, if you come across a rundown vacant property, I want you to call me. If you give your mailman $20 for Christmas, that to them is a lot of money. They'll roll over and let you rub their belly. I mean, they in all due respect to the mail carrier, they see a lot of stuff that you don't realize they see. Now, let me just kind of follow up with a couple more tips on action steps of what to do with that mail carrier. As we mentioned, the mail carrier sees distressed situations. He sees when the bill collectors are after somebody or a mortgage company is about to foreclose on one of their borrowers. But what he also sees is just aside from the secret information like the mail that they're getting, he on a daily basis has a route of most of the cases 500 to 700 houses that he sees every single day. A lot of times, if he's the regular mail carrier, and the regular mail carrier is actually the official term for the guy who does the route every day. He's called a regular carrier. So if he's the regular carrier, he knows the conversations going on in that neighborhood, and he has access to lots of plain view information. Plain view information is, newspapers piled up in the driveway. The mailbox is stuffed with mail. The grass is uncut and it's too long. We've all seen a vacant house before where the blinds are wide open. You could see straight through the front windows, straight out the back windows, and you know that house is vacant. Your mailman, if he's the regular guy in that neighborhood every single day, doesn't even have to think of where those houses are. He knows the addresses right off the top of the head, and he should be able to rattle them off to you.
Okay. Now, as you can possibly and probably imagine, that these are some of the super secret ninja secrets on lead generation, and it is awesome to be able to talk to actual people doing the work. And I'm hoping that you're enjoying this. Just keep listening, because this is going to be one of those episodes that I think, if it's not already, you're going to want to play and replay again. Now, you're going to hear the rest, and something I think is uncommonly special in this section coming up. In fact, so much so, I just want to get you right back to it.
That sounds awesome. And for $20, that would be a worthwhile investment.
Well, and, we further grease the wheel to say, and by the way, this kind of came from an investor luncheon we had years ago. And I still do this to today, is I was at an investor luncheon and people were saying to me, Tom, it's like, we know you're doing something just a little different from the rest of us to find deals, but what are you doing? Tell us. So I kind of told them the story that I just told you. And then I told them, but I've taken it a step further now, because I created a little CD. And on the CD, I talk to mailmen just like another mailman would talk to them. Because I know like all the shop talk and the buzzwords, and it's like, I actually speak mailman. It's like an official, it's an official word language. So I talk to the letter carrier like I'm another letter carrier, and I put it on a CD, and I just wrote with a Sharpie on the top. I said, hey, call me if you come across a house that meets these descriptions. And I kind of just run down in like a half-hour talk on the CD, all the different things I just mentioned to you about, tall grass, vacant houses, and all those things that they see on a daily basis that they don't even realize would be a great lead for a real estate investor. So at the end of the CD, what I do is I write my cell phone number on there, and mailmen, when they're in their truck all day long, a lot of them bring radios or CD players and stuff to listen to, and they need something to do out there. So I give them a CD, and they pop it in, and they go, wow, no one's ever given me one of those before. So I was at this investor luncheon, and I was telling these guys they just need to make, actually when I first started doing it, it was on a cassette tape. So those people who are younger on your show, Jay, they probably won't even know what this is.
Right. Yes, I was getting ready to say cassette tapes is what we used to use before CDs, which is what we used to use before the MP3s. So if you can think that far back, great. If not, just it's all good. Just start where you are.
It's all good. It's the concept. You can hand them a thumb drive today, which you can buy very affordably, right?
Right. Same price. Same price. Twice the storage.
Yeah. So nonetheless, I'd give them the CD and I'd talk to them mailman to mailman. And the guys in this luncheon were like, I was telling them, well, go ahead and create your own CD or record your own tape or memory stick or whatever. And they were like, well, we don't know how to do it. Why don't we pay you? You make one for us. So I actually made a few of them and started passing them around. And they were like, wow, this is pretty cool. So the point is, if you take that as an idea, if you just, take even a thumb drive, if you could record on that and something where your mailman could listen to it, at very least, a business card made up saying that, listen, you're a mailman and you see all these things and they're bullet point items, tall grass, all the plain view information, because, mailmen, they probably, a lot of them think, well, there's a line that I don't want to cross as a, government employee giving out too much information. But we know that, public servants like police officers and mailmen, when you go up to them and you ask them for directions, how do I get to 123 Main Street? They're supposed to be kind and help you and help the civilians and give you directions and so forth. So what I do is I keep it to plain view information. I say, do you have any houses on your mail route with really tall grass that are vacant? Because, and I give them my business card and I tell them, when I close the deal, I'll give you $500. And to them, that's a lot of money just for giving out an address. So see, I haven't crossed the line to say who's getting certified letters from mortgage companies, although they do know that. And if they want to offer that, then that's up to them.
Okay. I got this. So, but there's a question in the back of my head. Because I like the strategy, but any one normal human, there's only one mailman that I'm going to talk to. How do I? Because with something like this, I'd want to have a relationship. In my head, I'm starting to think, okay, how can I go down to the post office and just talk to all the mail people at once and pass it all? Do I got to buy them lunch? How do I get the entire station on my side?
Wow, you asked some really good questions, Jay. And I have a really good answer. And I've never even really let this out before because this is one of my big secrets, but I'm happy to share it with your audience. If you send a postcard to a particular zip code, for instance, I live in a zip code here, which is 33067. Well, every zip code has different mail routes. And I'm just going to pick a number to say the average city might have 25 different mail routes. Depends on the density and so forth.
Sure.
So that means there's 25 routes in that city. Well, you take the last two numbers of the zip code, which in this case, in my example, would be 67. Well, the first route number, because the routes of those 25 routes I just mentioned are numbered. So the first one is 6701. And then the second route would be 6702. The third route would be 6703, and so on, all the way up to route 6725. So what you can do is you can send a postcard and just simply address it with a postcard, postage stamp on it, to the mail carrier on route 6701. And then that would be like an I Buy Houses Cash postcard.
Wow. Did we I think we just gave away a super secret that I know somebody's going to do it, which is great. The point is that was awesome because I can just see that. That in and of itself, that could be your entire lead generation right there is what you're telling me.
Yeah. And it's done just with simple postcards and low cost postage.
I have never heard that. That is awesome. That is great. You're making me want to suddenly go back to doing single family houses again. When you say things like that, it's like, wow, okay, that could totally work. So what are some of the other uncommon things that the postal carrier knows that we don't know that they know? I mean, does this, say, for example, if I wanted commercial assets, does the same thing apply?
In that case, I would say the ownership of a commercial building is typically in a different place. It's a lot of times it's corporate entities that own commercial buildings. I imagine it could apply, but a lot of this has to do, and I know you like multifamily and more commercial stuff, and I kind of started single family. One reason I stay in single family is the negotiation is tipped way in my advantage, because the owner of a single family home is much less sophisticated than the owner of a multi or a commercial building. I think you'd probably have to agree about that.
Well, some of them, I will say.
Okay.
I will say that. I will say that. Depending on the size of the building, yes, absolutely, because there is a size of building where you're still dealing with the very same person. You really are.
Okay. Got it. But I know in the lower value ranges with single family houses, if you're dealing with people, that are less sophisticated than you, not to say that you're going to take advantage of anybody, but usually the lower that you go down the economic scale of price range, the sellers really care less about the price they get for the house. They really just care about getting out of the uncomfortable circumstances surrounding the ownership of the property. And
Okay, hold on.
my students that.
Yeah. I need you to say that again so that everyone listening can hear that someone other than me said, don't focus on price, but solve the problem. So say that again, because they don't hear it enough. And I need more people touting that very message.
Okay. I have to give credit to one of my early mentors, Warren Harding, again, who died decades ago, but his phrase he told me is this, and I'll never forget it. It's not about the bricks and mortar of the property. It's about the uncomfortable circumstances around which the ownership revolves.
Yeah, exactly. I hope you guys pick that one up too and run with it, because that is the key to all of the crazy, like, why would someone, what'd you say you bought it for 12 grand? Why would someone do that? Well, that's why.
That's a very specific why, because in that specific circumstance, why did she sell for 12 grand? The house is worth 50 because she was 4 years back from paying her tax bill on the property, and somebody had the tax certificate on it, and they were threatening to file for a tax deed, and she knew she had to sell the house to pay the taxes.
Exactly.
And the house I bought before that, Jay, I'll tell you, the last two I bought before that, one guy was incarcerated. He was going to prison, and he had 2 weeks to sell everything he owned. And we bought the house at a great deal. And the guy before that was actually being deported out of the country. He was here illegally, working under the table, bought a property, bought a mobile home with land, with cash. But when he was being deported, he had 2 weeks also to sell that, or he was gonna lose everything.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that correctly. You said he was on his way to jail and you had to buy the house.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, that's a problem that I'm like, yeah, that's an emergency situation. That totally qualifies. Would never, ever think to have a marketing campaign. If you're on your way to jail and need to sell your house, call me. But, hey, okay, I'm in. And you said the second was, if you're being deported and need to sell your house, call me. That's really, okay, awesome. You truly solve problems. And that's exactly what this whole thing's about, is about problems, not properties, in so many different ways. This is excellent. So now that you've managed to amass your own portfolio, tell us a little bit about how you spend your day, because if your day is anything like mine, you're like, man, I don't know what I might be doing right now.
Well, my day consists of really cherry picking deals now.
Right.
And we're at a peak in our market. Now, maybe you see the same thing, Jay, in California, because here in these sun and sand states that we have, Boy, I kid you not. Some of our neighborhoods in the last 5 years have tripled in value from the low they hit. So a lot of guys are cashing in, including myself, because it hasn't been all peaches and cream. I have seen the highs and I've seen the lows. And in 2005, I had a hurricane rip off all 37 roofs in one day.
What?
So, yeah, let's not go there.
Wow.
But it is what I said. So, I've had the thrills of real estate ownership, but, hey, it's an imperfect world we live in, and there's storms and there's earthquakes probably over your way. So,
right.
Stuff happens, as the bumper sticker says.
Well, yeah, but I like the just so that everybody knows, the word thrills was in quotation marks. It is, but that is one of the real risks, especially when you said 37, 36, 30, how many ever properties it was. But all of them? It didn't skip one?
All of them, including the house that I lived in. And I remember I had 5 or 6 properties I was rehabbing at one time. I just put brand new roofs on, and the roofs got ripped off. And what was worse than that was there was a shingle shortage in South Florida.
Of course.
And I had to get on a waiting list for a year to get the roofing material to put, because everybody was in the same situation. There were literally hundreds of thousands of roofs in one single day that suddenly needed to be replaced.
So what you're really telling us is, if I'm a roofing contractor, I might want to move to Florida?
Yeah. And if you're a buy and hold guy, you might want to move to California.
Yeah, well, and again,
Midwest.
you are definitely highlighting something. People have asked me time and time again, Jay, why don't you do Florida? Why don't you do Florida? I was like, well, the reason I don't do Florida is because I don't want to have to think about hurricanes. That's like the reason. There is yes, I know you have systems. Yes, I get insurance. Yes, I get all that. I choose to intentionally not have to deal with that because I just don't want to. There is no other reason other than that. But yet, here you are, the exact opposite, showing people that, yeah, you can totally deal with it. It's it's not going to be fun, but hey, when you can deal with it, it's okay, no matter what it is. And every place has its problems, wherein you actually have houses for 12 grand. We have closing costs that are 12 grand. So, there's just different things, 6 in one, half dozen in the other. They all have systems that can be dealt with. So if you, let me ask you this. If you had to start over today, would you still do this exact same strategy, or is there something else that you found that's been better in terms of being able to find property?
I would do buy and sell, and as I mentioned, create chunks of cash and try to, in maybe twice a year, go out to a place within your state where there's low-cost houses. In fact, I was in California in November. I drove from LA to San Francisco, cut all the way across to Reno, hit Lake Tahoe, and then from Lake Tahoe south, I drove along to Sierra Nevada, and there were all these little towns that I know you could buy houses there. I don't know if I'm going to say 40 or 50,000, but I'm pretty sure it was way under 100.
Yeah, you're probably right, okay, if you can find it.
Yeah. So if you can go into a city that's just kind of a little country town and you can buy houses for 25 grand or 30 grand, plunk down that cash. If you can get all your money back in cash flow within 2 to 3 years, that's a killer investment.
Agreed.
And that's what I would focus on is this way, eventually, you'll be able to get off the treadmill of the buying and selling activity.
Agreed 100%. So I know right now there's probably more than one person who is eager to follow up with you, find out more about what you've got going on. So tell us how they can track you down. They're ready to stalk you, Tom. So let us know how to do it.
Okay. They could, you could visit my website, which is simply millionairemailman.com. And you could fill out a contact form there. Or if you want to email me direct, my email is actually gethugechecks at gmail.com.
I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Okay. So one final question. Let's pretend for a moment that you right now, you're talking to that person, Tom, who's considering, getting their first superhero outfit. They're ready to be that entrepreneur, or at least they think they are. They think, okay, I'm going to do this thing. So they're standing in front of the superhero outfit store. They're picking out their cape. They're going, maybe I want a mask, maybe not. But the thing that's going on in the back of their mind, in the back of their head, is that voice. And Tom, I know you know the voice I'm talking about because you have dealt with that voice. I'm sure when you had 36 roofs get taken off, you were dealing with that voice. You have done battle and you have won with that voice. It's that voice that often says, are you sure you can? Is this really you? I mean, aren't you just a mailman? Who are you to think that you could own all of these hundreds of homes and do this? What would you say to that person who has that voice going on right now?
I say, and you probably heard this because it's biblical, is if you start with a mustard seed of faith, that just start with the small amount of faith, but move forward in action. Just try something. If it doesn't work or you find out you're getting resistance, that's okay. But find a mentor, first of all. Find a mentor or a good coach who understands the way, who's willing to give you the right information, and then just stay in action moving forward. And you're going to learn by doing. You really learn by those experiences. You can hear it 100 times. And Jay, I'm sure you have students or you've heard of people that they just get paralysis of analysis and you really learn by doing. So don't overanalyze stuff and just pick one model in real estate that you want to do.
Right.
Pick one marketing channel even. And a marketing channel is just one way of finding deals. Don't try to do 4 or 5. Don't try to send direct mail. Don't try to do focus on probates. Don't try to door knock for foreclosures. Just pick one of them till you get good at that one and get good at that one marketing channel before you open up another and work hard at it. And learn from the experiences. And that's really how you learn. With laser-focused hustle, I like to say. But laser-focused hustle on that one activity.
Agreed. I like it a lot. I definitely want to say I thank you for bringing something completely uncommon to our audience today. Hopefully those of you listening, you understand exactly how much value you just received. Sir Tom, thank you again for making those deposits here. We will do our best to take action on what it is that you have given us today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jay. Thanks for having me on the show today.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. If you didn't hear it in my voice, let me repeat it. Go do what you just heard. No one listening to my voice has an excuse anymore on, I can't find a lead. Yes, you can. You just learned how today. You know exactly what to do. You're like, Jay, I missed it. Well, hit rewind, play it again, and play it until you get it, and play it until you do it. And I think this is something you could execute within the next 24 to 48 hours. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time. All right, Tom, we're clear. Good stuff.
Oh.